Welcome to the newest episode of the Closer's Corner podcast. My name is Greg Simpson. I'm your host as always. And today I have with me Heather Dearborn in the studio today. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you.
So, as always, guys, if you find good value out of our podcast, please make sure you're subscribing on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, or Amazon, wherever you listen to your podcast. Give us a rating, give us a review. We really appreciate it. It really helps us with the algorithm to show up in all of it and get the message out here today. And that message is, as always, is that hiring a competent and good real estate agent is super important in the entire process of buying or selling a house, whether you are a retail buyer, you're a traditional buyer, you are an investor, and that is simply because it's the most valuable asset that you ever purchase in your life, for the most part. And it is super important that you have someone that's doing their job for you, that knows how to get it to the closing table to become a deal maker. And that's our tribe here at Out Fast. And Heather's one of our best agents and had a big closing in the month of August, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. And we obviously have some war stories that we've talked about over the years, because Heather has now just celebrated 2 years here at Out Fast, so whoop whoop.
Whoop, whoop.
And so Heather, let's dive right into this deal, because I know it was a doozy. You and I talked about this deal.
Yep.
As it was getting progressively more complicated towards the end of this deal.
Yeah.
But let's walk us through, like, where did you find this buyer, what their price range was, and so on and so forth. I know it was a long time coming to get this deal to come to fruition.
Yes. So I originally talked to them back in March or April. They are a friend of a friend, so a referral. And they've bought and sold a lot of properties. They have a lot of properties. They travel a lot. Great buyers. And they basically gave me 2 weeks because they were going to go back home up north for a little while. And they were like, well, if we don't find anything in 2 weeks, then we'll be back in October. So I'm like, okay, as a real estate agent, we don't get paid any sort of salary or anything like that. So to earn a commission, you have to have a sale. So I was like, okay, 2 weeks. They're, wanting to go up to like 2.2. And
Okay, jeez.
they both have very busy schedules. So it was like, okay, on this Saturday, we're going to go look at 13 properties.
13? You squeeze them all in?
We squeezed them all in.
Holy moly.
Some of them, because our market's crazy, had like a line out the door.
Really?
We had to
Even in that
wait.
price range, huh?
Yep.
Wow.
So it was good though, because it kind of showed them that even in that price range, if you see something you want, like, you have
Go.
to jump on it right
Yeah.
then. Like, we'll go out to the car and submit an offer. So they were getting kind of frustrated because he likes projects, and the wife is like, we're done. We're not moving into another house and gutting it while living there.
Especially with that price range.
Yeah, so we looked at, modern homes on the water, stuff in Kipps Colony, stuff in Snell, everywhere, Treasure Island, because they didn't know the area as well either. So
That's a
I
challenge,
was trying
I'm
to give
sure.
them
Where are they
a
from?
broad range. Northampton,
Where is that?
New York.
New York. Okay, got it. Sorry.
So I think, I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that.
Something like that. New York, somewhere up there.
So basically, the very last house that we looked at, I did not think that they were going to like 7,000 square foot, Southwestern style, not really updated, and just a lot to take in. It took us an hour and a half for that showing.
Just to
But
walk the whole
it
thing.
had been on the market for over 1,000 days. So I was like, we might have a pretty good opportunity here, even
Okay.
if it does need cosmetics, and like it's kind of a compromise for the husband and wife. It's not a full gut job, but still needs a lot. And they walked in it and fell in love with it.
Interesting.
Yeah, they were just like, we can do this and this and, all of that type of stuff. So we went out in the driveway and they were literally like, let's submit an offer. Because they did lose 2.
Okay.
So it was one of those houses that had like 20-something offers.
Right.
They did try to come in low just to see, and they didn't know that in that price point things were happening the way they were. So the very last house on the very last day, we went under contract.
Okay.
It was a lot of negotiating back and forth because we were about $200,000 off first just
Okay.
to see, and we still ended up, I think, $55,000 under list price, and
Okay.
then when the inspections came, we negotiated a whole bunch of stuff
Okay.
as well because they've been on the market so long. We have the upper hand.
Obviously. So what was the, do you remember the final, I know the final sold price was 1.5.
Yeah.
But how much did you totally get off? Do you remember exactly,
I think
roughly?
it was like 55,000, something like that.
Total
I
down?
think so.
Okay. So, lesson to you sellers out there, even on high price houses, make sure you list it for the right price to get go, or you don't want to be sitting on your house for 1,000 days, guys.
Yeah.
How many do you know? Had to have had price reductions at some point along the
They
way,
did,
right?
but not very much.
Okay.
So not enough to, and it was just a very, very different house, very unique house, and
Pretty sure hard to comp too, maybe.
it was. So
Okay.
we were all
Appraisal have any issues with
freaking
that
out.
too?
No,
No. Interesting.
but
Okay.
me and the agent worked together throughout the whole entire transaction to make sure that the appraiser had everything that they needed, all of the updates, we just gave them as much information as possible.
It's so nice to have like a good cooperating agent on the other side,
It's
right?
rare.
Yeah.
It's so rare.
I know that because we can talk about some of the things mechanics of this deal and why it was so challenging. Obviously, you had challenging on the timeline with the buyers. You had challenging differing of opinions between the two of them, which just can't be easy. But let's talk about once they went under contract.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah, they wanted to do originally a cash deal, right?
Yeah.
How did it switch from going to cash to a conventional loan?
So it was the buyer's idea. They just, they're pretty up to date on everything as far as like what's going on in the actual economy and stuff like that, and they know that the rates are down. So at first they were talking about maybe just financing like a third of it,
Okay.
to keep some cash and pay off a lot of it. And then when it came down to them talking to one of the lenders that they normally do transactions with, they talked to him and he was like, I think you should finance the whole entire thing because of how low the rates are. And he was like, okay,
All right.
I'm fine with doing that. I think they ended up financing 75% with a different lender.
Okay.
And we knew that we were going to be under contract for a long period of time because the sellers still
that.
needed to find a place. They didn't want to start looking because they'd been on the market
Yeah.
for so long, and
Why waste their time, especially in that market? It's such a balancing act at this point.
yeah. So they hadn't even started looking yet. So we gave them until, I think the original was August 30th. So that's
Okay.
a long time for a lot of things to go wrong. So
And they did, ladies and gentlemen, they did.
they did. So luckily the agent and I worked really well together. Because he had been on the market for so long, had a really good relationship with the sellers. However, there was also an attorney involved. And that's always fun.
Yes, the attorney.
The attorney. But it's not a real estate attorney.
Oh, really? I don't think I knew that detail.
So, okay, so.
Oh, it gets better.
Surprise! So apparently he had done some commercial stuff and did title work.
Okay.
So
Gonna be like Kermit. Zip my
we didn't
tea
really
over
like
here.
him from the beginning because I have a transaction coordinator and she's amazing. She used
she
to
is a
do
bulldog.
title. Yeah, she used
Love
to
you,
do
Angie.
title. And she's literally like, I wouldn't be where I'm at without her.
Mm-hmm.
And she's professional, she's nice, but you don't want to get on the bad side of her because she knows what she's doing. And the attorney basically said that he would no longer speak to her and no longer share emails or anything like that. At that point, I should have been able to step out of my transaction.
Right.
Like
Like I've been teaching you guys for years to do.
right. Someone that taught me that. So.
Okay. So let's talk about, because I know that one of the biggest issues was the fact that because you guys went under contract as cash and flipped it to the conventional financing during the process.
Right, but we couldn't go back to the seller and tell them, hey, I know we brought you a proof of funds, which is always needed, either a proof of funds or a pre-approval, so that the seller knows that the buyer has a way of closing. So we provided them proof of funds, it was cash. Now I think we were about a month in, maybe a month and a half, because you've got that huge long delay, so people are like, well, let me see how this will work out, because they have all this time. So that was when the buyers basically wanted to switch over to financing. At that point, because we were past the inspection period, if for some reason something happens with the financing, they have to come to the table with cash.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everything got dicey at the very, very end, so they didn't have the time to sell off, whether it's IRAs or whatever it needs to be. They can do an emergency sell-off. It's expensive.
And it was going to cost them a lot in taxes,
$250,000
Yep.
additional.
Mm-hmm.
And the main issue was that we had a $100,000 non-refundable escrow.
Yeah.
So that's why we all
So
stayed
they
in.
were because of the delays in closing, because the lender couldn't get it to whatever the issue was. I don't really know, don't really care, but the lender couldn't get their shit together enough to get to close on time.
Yeah, we
so
missed
you had some
the
delays,
3
right?
day. Yep.
You had to pay an extension fee because that attorney was a bulldog on that
The
side.
first one was $5,000.
Just to extend it, like what, 1 day or
1 day.
1 day for
No,
$5,000.
and it was till 1:00 the next day.
Holy shit!
So
So it was really a half day.
Yeah, so the poor title agent,
Ugh.
like she went through war.
Yeah.
Because of that attorney, which he
Shall
does the
remain
commercial.
nameless.
He does the commercial side.
Right.
Probably does a couple transactions a year because they're like big transactions, and did not do residential. So he got removed halfway through. And we did bring up the fact that we were going to be switching it to financing, but the sellers were like, we don't care.
Sure.
Thanks for letting us know, but
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
we don't care.
Yeah, because
Well-
they had to buy and close on their next house.
Yep.
That's why they were being so stern about the.
We found that out, that they were cutting it that close the week that everything was falling apart.
Mhm.
So as far as we knew, they had cash on their side too. So if they had to close, they could close cash on their side. They weren't depending on our closing to
Yeah.
close on theirs.
But still. So yeah, so they had $100,000 in escrow, your buyer.
Mm-hmm.
It was going to cost them an additional $250,000
For
to
emergency.
pull out that cash or that capital from their investment portfolio, essentially.
Now we were at 48 hours.
Yeah. They were pretty much, I remember having the conversation with you saying, my buyers are willing to walk away from the $100,000 because they don't want to give up $250,000
Right.
on top of it. And there was no guarantee it was going to close the next day.
So the fun of real estate is when deals fall apart, nobody gets paid.
Yeah.
And you have a bunch of angry people, and it's not good.
It's not good. So, like, this is why this podcast exists, people, because I've heard these stories from Heather, and Bryce has been on here, and Salem, and Suzanne, and everybody. And this is not just brokers or broker specific. This is literally every real estate agent on the planet. While this is sponsored by my brokerage, blah, 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 that's not the point. If you're watching this and you're considering selling your house using a RE/MAX or Keller Williams agent, know that they are going to bat for you. They're working their asses off for you. So don't give them shit that they don't earn their 3%. And that's the
Right.
whole premise of this podcast, is for the general public to understand that because you guys have been watching HGTV and what are the brothers? I don't remember their
Property
name.
Brothers.
Property Brothers. It is not, you don't sell a house in 30 minutes
No.
or an hour, or however long their shows are. And so, like, these are just microcosms. These are micro stories of what our agents or agents in general are going through to make their money. This is their livelihood. This isn't something that some of them do it as a hobby, which you shouldn't hire them usually, especially to sell your house. But I digress. We haven't even gotten to the other part of this deal where you guys didn't meet the first extension.
Right.
You didn't get to the closing table in
Nope.
time for that first one, so you had to do another extension.
Right.
How much did that one cost you?
The attorney did not even go to the buyers first and say, this is what's going on, like, they didn't meet the deadline, let's try to regroup. He was just like, nope, you guys are out, done. Because he technically,
It's technically he's
if
right,
the buyer
but
agrees with that, yeah, he's right.
the seller?
Yeah, the sellers.
Okay.
So if the sellers agreed to being done, we're done at that point.
And they start all
My
over
buyers are
again.
out $100,000. You know, I might get to help them buy a house, but probably not.
Yeah.
They were not happy at that point. Not necessarily with me, just the whole entire situation.
Yep.
So we had to go back to the attorney, and basically we wrote a letter and explained the whole entire situation, that it was of no fault of my buyers
Mhm.
at all, or anybody else that was working in the transaction, except for one very important part.
Which was?
The financing.
Mm-hmm.
So the financing was not meeting deadlines, and because of that, my buyers were screwed at that point. So we were like literally like pulling on the seller's heartstrings, like we already have a truck on the way here. Like,
they're moving from New York.
Yeah. And we were like super nice with the sellers throughout. Like if they had needed an extension on their end, because
shit happens on that side too.
yeah, you know, let's say their house wasn't ready
Right.
to be moved into yet. And that's what we literally had to explain. Like if this was turned, my buyers would be okay. But their attorney was like, no, take the $100,000 and like just put your house back on the market.
Yeah, for another 1,000 days.
And that's what I said. I'm like, it's not like it was a quick and easy sale. You had a line out the door and
Right.
people ready to buy. You didn't.
Oh,
So
man.
I literally had to like put that in the letter, and I was like, please deliver this to the buyers.
Mm-hmm.
And
Again, so glad that you had a listing
I mean, the
agent that
sellers.
was literally willing to go to bat for you guys on your side too, because again,
Yeah.
listing agents don't have to do that. They could
No.
have just been like, nope, sorry about your luck, and there's your $100,000, and then but he's also out of commission, or he or she, I don't think it was a he, right?
It was a he,
He would have been
yeah.
out of commission on his $1.5 million too.
Yes.
He's been working his butt off for 1,000+ days at this point. Like, that's why we're the deal makers, guys, is
Yeah.
because that we want to teach you or tell you guys and tell you the stories and teach you guys some cool stuff along the way of what it actually takes to be a deal maker.
Right.
And so this is just, again, this is a microcosm. This is just one little story of stuff, and, I tried getting on the phone with her and like, come up with some ninja tactics to try and do this. And we were kind of pretty much out of options at that point. And thank God the lender actually did follow through on the second extension.
yep, which cost
And
us
another $10,000,
another
right?
$10,000. So that's
$15,000 in extensions on top of the $100,000
for 48 hours.
for 48 hours.
That was
Talk
an
about pucking up your
expensive day.
butthole on that one.
Expensive
And just
day.
praying that it goes through, because I guarantee you they were not going to.
It was one of those deals that by the time it closed, I didn't celebrate. I went right back to work that day. Like,
Yeah.
went to the closing, went back to work. I was so like, I'm just happy it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
at that point, I was just, I didn't have to deal with it anymore.
Yeah, the mental capacity to deal with something like this.
Yeah, we were
is-
dealing with
is
calls
pretty
at like
brutal. Like-
11:30 at night.
Yeah.
7
I think I
o'clock in
talked
the
to you
morning.
at like 8:30, 9 o'clock one night.
Yeah,
And you
because-
guys know, if you follow me, I don't work past like 6:30 at the latest. But like, I think you texted me or I saw something on your Instagram and I was like, what the fuck? Let's figure this out.
Yeah.
And so, and sometimes being the broker owner and being the broker, like Jeremy, a lot of times we're counselors more than we are tacticians.
You're keeping our sanity.
Jeez. I feel bad for you guys sometimes. But yeah, so that deal did get to the closing table.
Yeah.
Your commission was roughly about $30,000, $35,000, somewhere in
Yep.
that range. It's a lot of work.
It was definitely a lot of work.
You earned that one for sure.
Yeah. And
Let's talk about your experience as a flipper. I know it's been a while since you've been a flipper, but let's talk about, because you have a different experience. And that's kind of one of the reasons you're here at the Brokers too, is because you've been a flipper before, and you understand that side, and you work with investors, blah blah blah. A lot of your customers and clients are also investors. So let's
Yeah.
talk about some of your horror stories on flipping.
That'll be fun.
We don't have all day, but you and I share war stories all the time. So let's talk about them.
Yeah. I think on the first flip that we ever did, that one was right off of Bryan Dairy.
Okay.
So I would never do that again.
No.
It's like there's like an access road and then like
Oh, yeah.
super busy road.
Mhm.
So we broke our first rule.
I don't do that anymore at all.
No,
Never have.
I wouldn't. So that house, they had been smoking in it for like ever, like disgusting. Green shag carpet. So we're just like, not a big deal. It's probably like either way you got to paint and texture, either way you have to do flooring, like not anything massive. Well, we decided that at that time that market was kind of hot as well, not like it is now, but that it would be better to be a 3-bedroom, 2-bath than a 2-bedroom, 1-bath.
Mhm.
So we did our very, very first flip ever and decided to do a garage conversion.
Oh boy. Rule breaker number 2.
Whoops. So everything was going well until they came and told us in order for us to tie in with the city, that, I don't know if you ever went to that house, that backyard was huge.
I think it was before I knew you.
I think so. So they had to do a 60-foot trench out the back.
I'm sure that plumbing bill was not cheap.
That was not cheap at all. Because it was a block house as well.
Okay,
so they had
great.
to drill through
Mm-hmm.
all of the concrete and then down, and then I guess they have to angle it back up or back down, one
yeah.
of the two. So just, pulling up on that site and seeing like the amount of equipment and guys and everything just to get a pipe from basically a toilet 4-inch drain to the tie-in was insane.
Yep.
And then we constantly had problems with the neighbors.
Okay.
They didn't mow their grass. They didn't do anything.
Yeesh.
It was like druggies taking over like an older guy's house, so we had to like call the cops on them and everything else. And then like just random busy road type stuff that we had to deal with. So that was a fun one. And then
Have you ever had a deal stay on budget?
No.
Lesson for you flippers out there that are
So-
first time flippers.
Even just
Yeah.
not planning on going over budget, we always put in like we
Yeah, you
call
get
it
your
like an
buffer.
oops fee.
Yeah.
Like it could be an extra $5,000 or $10,000, sometimes a little more depending on the house, and that's just in case something happens. Like you're always gonna find something. You're always gonna
Always.
open up a wall and be like, wow, it's completely eaten up by termites.
Mm-hmm.
I guess all this is being replaced now. That wasn't in the original budget.
Yeah, I mean, the
We
one we
had
did on Flora.
the ductwork that got eaten up by squirrels.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's brutal. We had a house that we bought last year that Keely did, and we started opening up walls. Every outlet of the house had the 3 prongs. We're like, oh, and it's got a brand new panel, like 2 years old panel. Open the walls, there's knob and tube in the walls.
Oh, no.
Live. Not like old knob and tube, live knob and tube.
What?
How that house hadn't burned down, I don't know. But that's what I'm saying. Like, it would cost an extra $5,000. We had to rewire the entire house. Thank goodness we had pretty much taken half the house down to studs, so that saved me some money. But my God, like that is just a very common story. So it's not just me, guys. It's like literally everybody out there.
Everybody, like it's fun when we all get like when we go to our happy hours and stuff like that, and just share like all of our war stories and like stuff with contractors, and
Yeah.
those are fun.
So what do you have in your pipeline? Because that's one thing we talked about a little bit with Salem when she was on, is like how long these deals actually take to get to the closing table. It's not just like the under contract to closing. It's like literally, hey, that referral came in.
Yeah. So I don't know what happened, but I came to the office on Monday. I don't come here very often, but we had training. So somebody mentioned that I should start putting video on my stories again. So the very next day, I recorded my light bulb story.
Okay. Yep.
And about being 40, and now
Resonated.
I'm getting into random stuff like lighting. It's fun. So I recorded that, and I ended up getting off of one person. He's probably going to be ready in the next month. It's going to be 3 referrals for North Carolina. It's 2 sales, him and his mom, next door neighbors, and then they're going to buy another property.
Ah.
So then I went to the gym yesterday, and right when I walked in, one of the guys that we used to go to the same gym when it was LA Fitness, and now like we moved. And I walked over to a piece of equipment, and he's like, hey, I like took my headphones out. I'm like, hey, what's going on? Haven't seen you in a while. And he's like, my brother's looking for a house. I saw on your story the other day you're still doing real estate. So I have 5 in the pipeline
Holy
from a
shit.
stupid light bulb story. Like,
There you go.
So
I've been screaming that
I'm glad
forever.
I came to the office on Monday. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
But yeah, no, it's funny that you say that, because, you know, when I'm trying to get Michelle to come on the podcast as well, because she's one of our top producers pretty much every month, it seems. And she came here about a year ago now, a little over a year ago now, and she was very much like you, even, where you don't like to get out from behind the camera. You like to show the pretty houses and stuff like that. But it really is about you guys doing stuff like this, telling the stories of the deals, because it shows that you're vulnerable, that you're a real person, and it's not about the house, it's about working with you, the individual. And literally she started doing that, getting out from behind the camera and getting in front of it like we are right now. And literally almost all of her business comes from her social media, using her sphere of influence that are following her. She's likable. You're likable. Almost all of you guys are very likable.
Yeah.
So like, don't just focus on like the the prettiness of real estate. Focus on the vulnerability. You know, Andy Frisilla talked about this on his podcast earlier this week about influencers. The ones that are being successful out there are the ones being vulnerable, being real, being transparent. That's why 4 years ago, my handle is Real Greg Simpson, because I have always kept it real with you and with everybody else, and I will keep it real with any and all people, because it's just the way the world works. Like, it ain't all sunshine and rainbows.
We don't have turnover here either.
No, we very rarely have turnover here.
When I worked at another place before this, we had a lot of turnover.
It happens a lot because you're not set up with the proper expectations. You're not actually given the right training. You're not given the right accountability. Again, you can be trained all you want, but if no one's holding your feet to the fire, and I think Jeremy and I do a really good job of that, understanding your goals, your dreams, your aspirations, and being like, all right, why aren't you hitting it? What are you doing? Where's your pipeline? What's going on? And it's not like we're assholes about it. At least I try not to be an asshole about it. Maybe I come off as an asshole sometimes, and that's okay. That's one of those things I don't give a shit if I do. But it's just the facts that you guys, you know, have taken a lot of what I've said and what Jeremy has said to heart over the years, and it's paying off. We're at 86 agents. We went from literally, you know, Heather's one of the OGs at this point. I think we had 15 when Heather joined 2 years ago. We had 19 as of October of 2019. We had 35 as of October of 2020, and we hit 85 in October, or 86 now in October of this year. So we have literally doubled every year.
And now I have friends getting their license to come here, which is cool.
Yeah, because Jake, you know, he came over. Caitlin's getting hers as well.
Caitlin's getting hers,
So it's going to be a wild 2022, guys. Anything you'd like to give as a parting words for agents and sellers and buyers that might be watching and listening?
I would say for agents, don't let your pipeline dry up ever.
Always be marketing, guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I like. Even tell like newer agents that are still like working their normal job and stuff like that. Like, everybody needs to know that you're an agent. You don't have to be like in their face, like handing out your cards and everything. I don't even have cards.
Nope.
It's all social media. So, and I don't ever like sit there and be like, hey, call me, let me be your agent, stuff like that. It's just being normal and being real out there. And at some point, everybody figures out that I sell real estate. And then I would say for sellers and for buyers, don't just hire an agent because you know them. It's your next door neighbor or your aunt or whoever it may be, because they might suck. Most of the time they're going to suck. Yeah. So I would say actually find an agent that's, one, passionate, two, knows, you know, their job, whether they're a listing agent, buyer's agent, both, knows how to like explain the process to you and set the expectations, and also knows how to price things accordingly.
It's fair.
So just stuff like that. I mean, you can go online and even look up like what should your real estate agent be doing to earn this commission, and ask them questions when you're sitting down with them. Ask them why they're in real estate and what they're passionate about and stuff like that. You'll find out a lot, and some of them, they might be a great agent, but they might not be the agent for you.
It's true.
So interview.
Definitely. Heather, it's always a pleasure having you in and talking shop with you, because it's been fun doing it the last few years. So again, guys, these people are agents, and agents out there earn every bit of that 3%. Do not try doing it yourself. Do not try going with a cut rate brokerage who's going to list your house for a discount, because you will not get the service that you need. Again, if you found great info in today's podcast, please rate and review us on all of the different types of podcast platforms that are out there that you like the most. Subscribe to us on YouTube, and we will see you on the next episode of the Closers Corner podcast.
Bye, guys.
Back. Hands up.